Hello, my name is Thomas Doherty. I'm an architectural and urban designer, and today I want to start a conversation about the concept of home, specifically what that looks like in our final years of life. This image on our screen is of a God's house in Bruges in Belgium. It's a development of homes, small homes built specifically for elderly around a shared courtyard. So what is it to have a home when we're in the final stages of life? Every time I speak about this topic, people come up to me afterward to tell me about their own struggles to care for aging parents. Caring for aging loved ones is something that almost all of us will do at some point in our lives, and neither our elderly being cared for or those caring for them have been happy with the current institutional offerings. Dr. Bill Thomas, a geriatrician recognized as one of the nation's most important thought leaders on aging and care, says that our current medical industry over-clinicalizes aging and that the environment we call home, not medication, should be the number one concern for those providing elderly care. How important is it to have a front door? How important is it to have the autonomy to be allowed, not necessarily physically able, but allowed to walk away from the home? The kind of agency that comes with a front door. How important is the beauty of the courtyard garden? On the left is a God's house in Bruges. On the right is a modern elderly living facility in America, completely car dependent, with rooms, perhaps not homes, open onto common corridors. There's a famous saying, "We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us." This is Bruges, the image, a historic city built by hands at a human scale almost 1,000 years ago. It's a city of walking where the young and old, even today, are offered the autonomy that comes in a pedestrian-scaled city. It was here in the 14th century, here in Bruges, that the God's house was first created by guilds and wealthy merchants to house the elderly that were in need in the city. Contrast that Bruges with our own environments on the right. We live in the wealthiest, most prosperous, technologically advanced moment in the history of the world. And we took all that knowledge, all that wealth, and all those resources, and we got this, which is really the product of Excel spreadsheet development, not even design. Those spreadsheets don't value permanence, and their value proposition is number of units to cost of construction within a 30 to 45-year time frame. But individuals, families, the collective memory of generations desire much longer time frames. A God's house built simply out of brick is a gift to the city and community. It's recognized as a home for generations of families and the community as a whole. This top image is of the God's House de Moliniere, built and endowed by the Moliniere family in 1613. This is a true legacy project. So cars and their effect on our concept of home. Development after about 1950 in America, no matter what the purpose or function, was built around the automobile. For those of us with cars, this offers significant opportunity and freedom. It fits a culture that puts less value in permanence in home and more on freedom of movement. However, for those who cannot afford a car or cannot drive, it is isolating and even dehumanizing. So this streetscape right here does a great job of fitting these people right there in the middle, but it doesn't do a good job for our young and our elderly. The average American moves every 5 years. We become, in some regards, a nomadic culture. That sense of home and familiarity of place are given up for other more pressing values. And again, the young and the old are bearing the burden here. The loss of home is perhaps felt hardest by the elderly. Studies have shown that dementia and depression rise drastically as persons move from the home that they know and control to assisted living or nursing home residents that they don't know and don't control. It wasn't always like this. Atul Gawande, physician and author of Being Mortal, writes that as recently as 1945, most deaths occurred in the home. By the 1980s, just 17% did. The nursing home or assisted living segregates those that cannot operate or afford a car. Dr. Bill Thomas writes, the three plagues of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom account for the bulk of suffering among our elders. For the middle group, these two housing options shown at the top and bottom are great, but for the elderly and young, there's a problem. The top, designed for cars, lack of autonomy, lack of individuality, lack of empowerment, and many who live there don't feel like it's a home. The bottom, again, designed for cars, lack of community, lack of accessibility, lack of health services for our elderly. Can we do better? I propose we in America look to the historic Godshuis of Bruges, which still serve as a strikingly beautiful home for elderly to spend their final years. This was part one of a three-part video series. To learn more about the history of the Godshuis and how this model of elderly housing was never developed in the United States, please watch part two.